close and your client's closer. The only thing that is slower than sand, you might think that sand is the slowest thing imaginable, but there is actually something slower. It's called the network cable. And your application probably uses a lot of find statements. Do we have anybody here whose application does not use any find statements? Good, because I would have to wonder about that. You use a lot more find statements than you do the for each no lock queries. Progress has done a ton of work on improving query performance. For each no lock has become orders of magnitude faster than it used to be. So when you go out and you grab a bunch of data and you want to do a report or an inquiry or something like that, you get that data like that. Much, much quicker than you used to in a client-server environment. The problem is that the find statement has not been improved. And it really can't be, because a find statement is a single record. You're going out, you're asking the server for a record, the server has to send the record back. That's two or three messages. Technically, I think it's three. It's a request, a response, and then the cursor gets released. And each of those is going to take a fraction of a millisecond. Well, a fraction of a millisecond is an enormously long period of time, right? And those add up, a couple hundred fractions of a millisecond, and all of a sudden you're looking at time that people are actually going to notice. So if you're going find in a client-server environment, that's going to slow you down. You want to do things that will avoid that. And one of the best things that you can do, we'll get to that. So comparing shared memory to client-server really is pretty radically different. So you can run, 400,000 records per second shared memory, or you can do a couple thousand local hosts. The difference is enormous. If you have to be client-server, the thing that will make the most difference is your ping time. So these are different client-server scenarios with different ping times. You get much better throughput on localhost, even though it's client-server, TCP IP sockets, all that kind of stuff, because your ping to localhost is 0.017 seconds. Your ping to an actual physical LAN, local LAN, right next door, is 0.058. But there is an anomaly here. You see this throughput for this guy, the for each joined with a table scan, is actually much higher in client-server than it was for shared memory. It didn't even show up in shared memory, it was so slow. How's that? The difference is because in client-server, you have two separate processes which are actually cooperating. So you've got the client and you've got the server, and when you're streaming a large amount of data, the latency gets lost in the startup. So the streaming of the data is what you see there, because there are two processes doing it. When it's in shared memory, there's only one process doing all the work, so you don't see the throughput as quickly there. Now, client-server, I mentioned here, these are local results with the ping time 0.058, 0.069. I tried to run the benchmark on a non-local example. And that benchmark had a 35 millisecond response time. When I ran it, after 18 hours, I killed the benchmark because I didn't have any results. So it was way worse than running locally. So what are some of your solutions? Well, you can use shared memory, and that works if you have a good old character client. You know, anybody still have good old character client? Excellent, excellent. You are the good people. You can get great performance because you don't have to worry about client server. You can move your code into a classic app server or PAS-OE and run those in a shared memory configuration to do your finds and your for eaches and all that fun stuff. You can minimize ping time. If you keep in mind that 1 millisecond is not really good. 1 millisecond is a server that's 100 kilometers away. So that's not really local. If you're within the same data center, then you're in that 0.0 some odd millisecond kind of range, then you're probably okay. If you're running in Azure, then you want to use what's called a proximity placement group. That's Azure's term for two servers that are right next door to each other. And yeah, you have to pay extra for that. Or if you're in AWS, you can use something called local zones, which is the same thing. They're servers that are right next to each other, probably in the same rack. And they'll have very good ping times. Other things that you can do to improve your find latency are to try to address the find by using a temp table instead. An awful lot of that find traffic that a lot of applications use is really it's control records. A lot of them are read-only records, and a lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot, are in small tables that you just read over and over and over again, one record at a time. So build a temp table, put it on the client, and do temp table finds instead of database finds, and you'll reduce a lot of that traffic that way. It's a good strategy.